All right, let's see if we can kick this thing up. Looks like we've got 3 people watching currently. And there we go. We got our live chat active. Well, here's Luigi. You guys have been seeing that the kittens are growing and stuff like that. So Luigi's growing up. He's what, 5 pounds?
5.5.
5.5. That half a pound really makes a difference.
He's almost the size of his mom.
Yeah. 5.5 pounds worth of, when it ends up tripping you in the middle of the night, you still don't care about the half pound. So we got a couple of ginger ales, and we'll sit down. We'll do a little bit. I got some video work I'm working on tomorrow and stuff, so we'll probably cut this off after a couple of hours. Most of the time we run from 6 to 8 o'clock if you're new to joining this. And I got a couple of points that I talk about usually, and otherwise than that, I pretty much talk based on what you guys ask for questions. So I'm glad to see we got a group coming in and people joining, and we'll go from there. And otherwise than that, throw up questions. Feel free to go and ask ahead, and we'll see where we can go. And if things get a little bit slow, then I'll talk about some stuff that's been going on until some more questions come up. That's usually the way it works. Let's see. Wizard Mower. I have a Snapper Massey Ferguson LT12 garden tractor. I plan to convert it to a plow mower. Any suggestions? One major suggestion that I would give if you're going to go and plow is that it is one thing to deal with soft, fluffy, lovable snow that you see in the movies. It is another thing if you deal with coastal snow that is heavy and has a bunch of ice or anything like that. If you are dealing with coastal snow that is heavy, then without a question, you need to go and put some sort of frame brace in. The factory setup for most plows does not include a frame brace. And if you hit something that is solid, you're going to bend it. Back when Maine Mud Mower was around, I actually went through 3 separate frames, and the frame bending had nothing to do with using it as a mud mower. It was because just about every year that I plowed with it, I would bend the frame at some point. Let me see. How's my day? My day's going pretty good. I picked up a new machine that'll be in a video pretty soon, and I got that up and running. The hydro build I'll be talking about real soon on RCG Racing. We've got things in the works as far as the hydro build is concerned. I've got parts in for, well, I've got a part showing up for the diesel dragster, and I've got a couple of parts on hand in order to be able to do that. And a bunch of things. You know, it's that time of year where things peak out as far as the lawn tractor sales are concerned, usually about this time of year. So I will be working in order to go and get the 5 machines done that I currently have going on right now and get them off and done with. And then after that, we'll see what we can do. Let's see. What is the best way to brace a transmission? You know, that's one of those argumentative things that really depends on how you're dealing with a machine and stuff like that. Bracing a transmission is only relevant as far as I'm concerned if you have not decided to go the method of a dock locker. If you've gone the method of a dock locker, then bracing the transmission really basically is a waste of time. You're pretty much doing it in order to have a skid plate under the transmission. Now, if you're not running a dock locker and you're running a welded differential, then yes, running a brace is a very good idea. Now, if you're running something like an MST 206 that has the extended axles, that's the reason why it is you hunt for Murrays with a 206. Is a 206 axled Murray is actually a longer axle shaft on both sides, and that allows you to put pillow block braces down in order to be able to hold the axle on either side. Now, the other thing to do is to cradle the transmission. And cradling the transmission actually has nothing whatsoever to do with the transmission. Cradling the transmission actually is you keeping the two sides of the transmission tunnel from going like this. Because when they go like this, you snap your transaxle in half. So all that you're doing with that transmission cradle and brace is making sure that those two sides do not move, which is the reason why on Mud Wizard, you will see that there is never, ever a video of me ever putting a cradle underneath that transmission. And the reason being is because on the back of Mud Wizard's frame, before I put that back plate back on and welded it solid in place, I ran a piece all the way across at just above the rear of the transmission. And then the transmission pieces that come up that the transmission mounts to are also welded to that crossbar that runs across the top of the transmission. And this is the reason why it is I don't bother running cradles underneath. Because if you've hit it hard enough to dent your cradle, you are going to hit it hard enough to break through the cradle most of the time. And even with 22s on the back, you only have about 9 inches of clearance between the bottom of your differential and the ground. So you've got 11 inches at least worth of clearance if you're running 16-inch front tires. The entire rest of the machine has 11 inches worth of clearance, but you've only got 9 underneath your transmission with 22-inch tires, which means if you make an engine cradle, you lose another inch worth of clearance, and you've got a place that pockets mud, which ends up overheating your transmission, which ends up boiling the grease out of your transmission after it overheats, which eventually ends up blowing the bearings out the top of the transmission, and it is what it is. So that is the reason why Mud Wizard is built differently than a few other machines that are out there, is because of pre-planning versus after the fact fixing. Am I going to locker the transmission in the bouncer mower? I might at some point. The bouncer's hydro is hitting the point that it's going to need a rebuild probably by the end of this year. And I've got new tires that I actually just ordered in order to go and put on that build, because I kifed the cheap Wandas off of that in order to be able to go and put onto the diesel dragster. And so I've ordered a set of Maximus in order to be able to go on there. They're 1 inch smaller diameter, but they've got a more flexing rubber tread to them, which should allow them to go and get better grip. And that's the problem that the bouncer build runs into. The problem that the bouncer build runs into is that we have a lot of terrain around here that is, it's rocky terrain, but it's smooth rocky terrain because we got a lot of shale. And so once the weather gets to it, it tends to end up weathering over and getting really, really smooth and slippery easily. So I'm swapping that machine over to having some better, more flexible grip on it to see how that reacts first. And then we'll probably put a locker on it. The thing about putting a locker on is the moment you do that, you lose a ton of your turn radius. And I'd rather go and be able to have the turn radius right now for, well, she's learning to drive and doing the off-road stuff, than one more thing to have to plan ahead on as far as the locker is concerned. Oh, so I promised a friend that I would talk about this because I wanted to go and pass this along, because I've never run into it in dealing with engines and stuff. And so I had one heck of a learning experience that was rather shocking, quite literally, in dealing with stuff. And so I have a friend who had a zero turn. And that particular zero turn was having electrical issues because of somebody tearing into it and everything else. And you know those basket case machines where obviously somebody got in there that had no idea and just started slicing up wires until they thought they were going to fix it and never did. And so everything in it was shot or messed up. The key switch was bad. All of it was bad. So while we were dealing with it, it was a Briggs & Stratton V-twin. It was an Intech V-twin, and I can't remember which horsepower it was, but basically it was out of that series of the 18, 20, and 22 size series. And they had gone through and somehow managed to mess with the grounding wire for the coils, and there were two diodes in the kill wire series that were fried. And so the thing just kept killing the coils. One thing right after another would just shut the coils off. So we unplugged the wires and we clipped them off and we got it up and running. And me being, tractor guru-y, whatever, I was like, oh, well, it's just a set of coil kills. All you got to do is just wire them back together and put a toggle switch on and you'll be good to go. Well, apparently that doesn't work on those. Apparently, the coils on a Briggs & Stratton V-twin, the 18, 20, and 22, as far as I could find in research, they actually will interfere across each other if they do not have the diodes in the wiring system, so that they have independent grounds that go to each of them, with the diodes coming together for a singular kill wire ground that you actually toggle. And the reason why I had never ever seen it was because Briggs & Stratton actually has the diodes hidden behind the starter assembly on that track, on those motors. So I had never run into it. I had never seen that. I've wired up tons of Kohler V-twins with just stuffing some wire from one coil to the next and wiring it up, and it worked perfectly fine. I've done tons of singles, just wiring in a toggle coil kill. But on those V-twins Briggs, apparently there has to be a diode that segregates each of the coils. So I thought that was rather interesting, and I figured I'd talk about that. And yeah, I got shocked a lot, both physically and mentally, by that experience. Let's see. The Dozer Build. Right now, my entire center of my garage is torn apart and in the process of cleaning and reorganizing and everything. Once the center of my garage is available again, I will set up and probably get back to work on the idea of the Dozer Build. There's not much I can do right now without space. The other thing is, I got to finish through until dry season starts. Usually by now, we've started into dry season in Maine. So the fact that I'm able to go and push it a couple of more weeks and make a few $100s more here and there, I'd really love to go and be able to finish off the 6 machines I got going. Plus, I've got a few more potentially. So the Dozer Build's going to wait. The Dozer Build's a really good wintertime project, and I might end up just setting it aside till then. Because the other problem with the Dozer Build is when I started that build, I expected the engine that was on that tractor to be usable. So I don't have a spare motor kicking around right now, other than some like big giant Gaumy opposed twin or some opposed twin or something like that. Right now I don't have any motors that would be thin and have enough horsepower to be able to do that project. Because the problem is I need like a good solid 18 to 20 horsepower single cylinder in order to do that project. And trying to get it up and running on one of the spare 14.5s that I have would just plain be a waste of time, as far as getting that build going. So right now, I'm still engine hunting. If I can get something earlier, so be it. If not, I'll deliberately buy into something before winter time so we can continue that project. Let's see. I'm making a drag racing lawnmower. Any tips? Are you making a drag racing lawnmower in order to race with a group or to race at the drag strip? Or are you making a drag racing lawnmower just because you want to go and gigglishly do 40 miles an hour so that your mom yells at you to get off the thing? There is a big difference between all three. As far as tech requirements and stuff like that, if you're planning to go to a drag strip, most of the drag strips are going to require you to manage to do the same tech inspection as an ATV or a motorcycle, which puts you at the point of hydraulic brakes and a solid lockered rear so that you can run your hydraulic brakes and things like that. So if you're planning to join a group, like say the group that I race with, you're going to want to go through their rules and find out what their rules are and plan ahead for the distance that you're going. Now, the one thing that I'll say is that if you're going to be dealing with a group like what I race with, you need to plan ahead based on what the distance is that you're drag racing. For example, one of the tracks that we've been racing at is 100 foot. Versus another track that we're racing at is 150 feet. So you basically got a couple of different ways to play that ball game. Either A, you set it up so that at 150 feet is when you're topping out your machine in, say, 6th gear. So you would launch in like 3rd or 4th gear, you would bump it to 6 and roll it out the rest of the way. Or and then what you would do for the short track is you could either run 3rd and then have a bump stop in order to keep it so it only goes into 5th, because you're not going to have the run out speed for a 6 gear shift. Or you can do like what on the next race that I'm going to be putting out, one of the guys literally runs the entire race almost in 4th gear and only shifts if he needs to get that extra boost, depending on who he's against. So in 100 feet on 4th gear, if you're turned up and you're running about an 8 on the front with about a 4 on the rear or a 5 on the rear, you're still easily pushing into 35 or so miles per hour at the end of 100 feet. So it depends on where you're trying to go and do your racing and what you're doing for racing. Now, as far as the machines that we build for the 150 foot drag race, if we went to, say, like there's an 1/8 of a mile track that's near me for drag racing, and we were topping out at 150 feet because we're only shifting 2 gears, well, that would be stupid to go race. If you were doing it for a drag strip, you would want to go and have some form of a ratchet shifter in order to be able to take off in, say, 2nd gear, and then be able to click it to 3rd, click it to 4th, and click it to 5th, and click it to 6th as you go up through. But that means you're still going to be shifting like 5 times up through the track, but you're not going to be wanting to launch like you do for 150 feet. So it's very different depending on what it is you're planning to go and race on. Let's see. Nice set of screwdrivers. That was a gift from Jessie. I really like those. They really come in handy. I keep them there and I only use them on electronic projects and stuff like that because I like the full set and I don't want to screw them up. I've got plenty of stuff I can abuse downstairs, but I keep that set nice and all together. Let's see, what do I prefer? A fender shifter, console shifter, or column mounted in the dash shifter for practicality? practicality, without question, the fender shifter is always going to be the most comfortable to work with. As far as mudding and off-road is concerned, I really prefer the Nutbuster shifter because it's direct drive right straight to the transmission, and there's no way that, I mean, if you've got a Nutbuster and something goes wrong with that shifter, there's only two things that can go wrong. Either you blew the shift keys or somehow it came loose from the top of the transmission, because otherwise than that, it's nothing but just a rod coming up. If you're dealing with a fender shifter or a console shifter or a column shifter or anything like that, in between stuff, you've got linkages, and every one of those linkages is a wear point that will eventually mess you up on shifting. There are many, many, many times that I will end up with LT1000s that will not go into 6th gear. And the reason being is because the shifter linkage ball joints have worn out to the point, and that's just mowing grass, have worn out to the point that there's so much flex that it will not make it into 6th gear. And that's one of the problems that you run into when you off-road those, is all it takes is just something up in there, just enough to flex the frame or to kittywampus it just enough, and you'll end up with partial shifts. And you got to be careful about those partial shifts if you're down, you know, turning on something or stuff like that. It's a real good way to blow some shift keys up out in the middle of nowhere and hate life. Really like your videos. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that. I do the videos because it works for me and it works for you. I managed to go and make a living doing it, and you guys get to learn something, and every once in a while I learn something, I get to pass it on. And that's what I like about this. I like the fact that you continue to learn stuff and tinker on stuff, and there's so many years worth of equipment and things like that, that, you know, even when you have repetitive machines that you work on, you still run into those how in the world did this happen moments and stuff like that. I mean, I used to have a friend that always said it's never a dull day being a mechanic because people are so stupid they always come up with new ways to break it. And that's how lawn tractors are too. You constantly run into buying machines where you just wonder what in the world somebody was thinking when they touched it. And especially electrical. Electrical is one of those things where people just start ripping things out, and it really should just back away. Do you have any suggestions on putting a horizontal shaft motor in my GT6000? Robbie, down in the comments section, is your GT6000 the older style, like the dark gray and the light gray series that has a 633 in it, or is your style the newer style that has the like the red hood and that kind of setup? Because there's a newer GT6000 that's a whole different ball game than the older series. Let's see. I have a Wizard 2, older than yours, but gets the job done. Mine is a 93. Only cost me $50 with a very rare opposed twin option. Cool. Yeah, the Wizards are a nice, solid little base, but the Wizards are a lower grade Craftsman. So every once in a while, when you're working with the Wizards, you'll find something that's thinner material or more shoddy made or things like that. For example, one of the things I've found on Wizards and on Weed Eaters is that where you've got your so you've got your pivot for your clutch, and for your pivot for your clutch, where the spring attaches to it and pulls it against you, on a Wizard and on a Weed Eater, the metal that is made out of is thinner than it is on a Craftsman or a Husqvarna. So you have to be really careful and watch out for those. What I have started doing is when those are worn out, what I do is I weld a nut right to the top of it, usually something like a 1/4 inch nut or something. I'll weld it to the top of it, and then I'll grind it down a little bit so that you can get the spring back through it. But be really careful and watch out. The other thing that I've noticed is that the bushings for the deck engagement lever is usually cheaper on those, and a lot of times the deck engagement lever will you'll go to slide it up, and instead of sliding straight up, it'll slide like kind of wonky sideways to one side, and it's usually the lower bushing is gone on those. And they're like a really cheap polymer plastic, whereas on a lot of the Husqvarnas and stuff, they are higher end content. I don't think they're brass, they're like something else, but either way, that's just something else to go and watch out for with those when you're working on them. Do keep in mind it is the knockoff of the original, and anytime you have something like that, you're going to find inequalities between the two. Oh, and if it has first gen Craftsman steering, the polymer steering piece that is in the gearbox in the first gen on a Wizard and on a Weed Eater is thinner, and it will wear out much faster. Let's see. Briggs & Stratton has had the dual coils with the diodes for around 5 years. Oh no, it's got to be way longer than that, because the motor that we were working on was sometime circa like 2000 and like 2-ish. It's way older than that. That's why I decided to talk about it in this chat, because I've never run into it and never seen it, because they were hidden. And I came back to my house and I tore into every single one, including 2 dead blocks that were in my junkyard, in order to check. And all of them had those diodes, and all of them had the diodes hidden behind the starter. So what it is on the Kohlers, they don't have it. But your coils on a Kohler twin are ginormous. On a Briggs & Stratton twin, they're really, really thin, and they end up with the interference between the two, and they kill each other. And that's where they come from. So if you have the version with the small, thin coil, it's got those diodes most likely hidden down behind the starter. Let's see. David, why do you have the comments turned off on your site? I'm going to say you haven't tried to comment in the last week or so, because the comments are back on. No idea why. YouTube all of a sudden decided to turn them on. I've been trying for 3 years to get them to turn them on. Sent them 21 different requests to have it reassessed. I've been through 5 different tech support, whatever things with it. Told them for years that kids don't use welders. But finally, out of nowhere, they decided to send me an email about how they were able to be re-enabled under some child premise, something or other. So we'll see how long I continue to have comments. But if you want to go and give me some feedback on a few videos, you're more than welcome to right now. The only ones that do not have comments, because of YouTube's stupidity in the past about turning me into a child channel, is the highest viewership Power Wheels build videos do not have comments turned on. Otherwise than that, feel free to go have at. I've rather enjoyed all of the you're doing it wrong techie comments coming back. It's always interesting to go and see how people tell me stuff doesn't work when obviously at the end of the video, the machine is running and driving after doing what I did to it. But, you know, that's part of having comments on YouTube is you got to have the good and you got to have the bad. You wouldn't have daylight if you didn't have nighttime. So at least we got comments back so that everybody can be able to tell me something. Let's see. A&D lawn tractor sales. I got one that's faster than 40. Cool. Most of the guys that run in the Outlaw are capable of doing 50 plus. They just don't manage to do 50 plus in a matter of 100 feet. But they're doing over 40 and 150 feet. That's the thing about the drag races is there are multiple lawn tractor what am I looking for? Guinness Book of World Records. There are multiple Guinness Book World Records of being able to build a lawn tractor with a V-twin with an 820 transaxle that were capable of 80 plus miles per hour. In fact, I'm pretty sure the current record for a all lawn tractor parts, lawn tractor build, minus the steering, obviously, is 96 miles per hour. But that 96 miles per hour was done over the course of a Bonneville Flats raceway. That 96 miles per hour was not managed to be done in a quarter mile. It was done in like a full mile. So the thing about the drag races is how fast can you go in a certain distance. So I totally bet you have a machine that does 40. I totally believe that. I've built multiple machines at this point that do 38, 40 miles per hour. I actually had to dial back a machine because it was trying to do 45 in top gear, and that just was ludicrous to attempt to go and do in 100 feet. But it is what it is. You got to build for where it is you're running. Let's see. Whatever happened to the mower with a power washer motor? We got it up and running. It's driving and everything. We've been tinkering with it. I worked on making it so that John could actually drive it without any issues with the clutch and stuff. We just haven't gone back to revisit the build at this point. And John doesn't usually get stage fright about stuff, but when it comes to the idea of his personal tractor and him personally driving it, he still has a little bit of stage fright, honestly, about the idea of shifting it and doing the gears and stuff, because the transmission that's in it is a really old 600 series Peerless. And those things, well, put politely, those things suck to try and shift when they were brand new. So the fact it's a 1970 something transmission that the spider gears are utterly totally gone and everything else makes it a right royal basket case to attempt to shift. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a good way for him to go and learn and respect driving with a clutch and driving with a transmission that has gears in it. The thing will do about 8 miles per hour in third gear, which is more than fast enough for somebody to learn how to drive a clutch transmission and learn how to plan ahead to stop and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's not that it's not around. It just, I'm waiting for John to hit the comfort point of wanting to talk with you guys and show you more about it. But it has had follow-up project stuff done to it, and eventually we'll get there. But that build is at John's pace, just like a few others that are on the channel. Let's see. Did you get to sell that auction generator right along with the Craftsman toolbox? Actually, the auction generator needs to get off of my bench. So I have this thing about refusing to sell something unless it actually functions the way it's supposed to be, especially something like a generator. And that generator has been used to the point that A, the 220 side doesn't work, B, the 110 side of it only seems to put out about 15 amps when it should be putting out a full 20, and the 12-volt charger side on that doesn't function. So the motor runs great, but the generator side of it is just kind of hogwash. So it's still sitting there. It honestly just needs to go away. I've kind of been basically waiting for somebody to say that they need a generator in an emergency and just let the damn thing go there and never see it again. Well, I'm not allowed to go and discuss exactly what I make on YouTube, but the polite statement would be that the amount of money I invested in making that video, I made back in YouTube eventually. So I really don't care what happens with that generator. I've actually got another generator follow-up video to do with that. Not with that one, but to do with that one. Because ever since I posted up that generator video, I've had a whole ton of people get a hold of me about whether I know whether those Predators that are in the generators from Harbor Freight have a straight shaft or whether they have a tapered shaft. And so after discussing that with a friend of mine, next thing I know, he gets talking with another junker, and I've got a dead one sitting on my yard so that I can tear it apart for you guys in order to answer the question that you guys have been sending me. I just have had so much going on that I haven't been able to follow up that video. And I've also been waiting to do that video with John. And with all of the stuff that we've been doing, the tearing apart of a junk generator just has not been on the high priority list. The other thing about generator videos is that generator videos don't, pun not intended, generator videos don't generate anything for search hits and income during the summertime because nobody really cares other than the occasional hoity-toity RV person. So the videos about them are usually worthless except for during winter. So I'm not overly worried about tearing it apart, but I'll get there eventually. Let's see. Let's see. Have you ever had any problems with a Craftsman YT3000 because my steering can't be adjusted and the tires are towed out? Okay, so on that 3000, is yours the type with the two bars that there is an independent bar that comes out from your steering gear to each knuckle? Because if you have the independent bars that come out to each knuckle, the way that you end up with tow is because those bars have become bent and they're messing up the alignment. Now, if you have the system where you have a singular bar and you have a tie rod that runs from one knuckle across to the other knuckle, then your tie rod bar that runs across in order to have tow is what is bent, and it's bent up. It's supposed to be straight, but what happens is when they get impacted, they bend up into the underside of the chassis, and then at that point, you end up with towing. So those are the two things you need to check. If you need some guidance on the one that has the one bar and then the tie rod across, I actually ended up covering that slightly in my video that I posted up about rebuilding the upper part of the Craftsman LT1000 decks. I recently posted that. I believe it's a couple of videos back. And in that video, that machine actually has the towing Chevy problem. So depending on which machine you have, go back and take a look at that video, and that should help you with that. If you've got the 2-bar system, yet again, check those, make sure they're not bent, and that's probably where your problem's at. The other thing that can happen with the 2-bar system is that the attachment at the steering knuckle itself can actually bend. Well, it doesn't bend. What's the term I'm looking for? Twist. It can actually twist around just a little bit from an impact, and that will cause it to tow also. So there's a couple of ideas for you, and hopefully that'll end up working for you. Let's see. When you're talking about the pivots, did the earlier Poulians have the same quality? Poulians had higher end pivot points than the Weed Eaters and the Wizards. Poulians, Husqvarna, and Craftsman's had the higher end parts than the Airines. I always pronounce that one wrong. I don't know how to pronounce it, nor do I care. And those ones. So that's the difference there. The other thing that I've noticed is that on 2nd gen Craftsman steering, that Husqvarna part numbers end up coming up with the 2nd gen steering that has, so the 2nd gen steering has a fan steering, and there is a bolt in the center to retain it when it gets hit or impacted. The Craftsman one, for some reason, a lot of times doesn't have the impact bolt. The Husqvarna part number 1 does have the impact bolt. Now, what's funny is the impact bolt hole is actually drilled out in the Craftsman one. So why they didn't bother putting the stupid bolt in the Craftsman one, I don't know. But I always watch for those pivot bolts when I'm ripping apart Husqvarnas, because that's the upgrade for the Craftsman one to make it just that little bit stronger for off-road. Let me see. Where is Jessie? Jessie's currently probably attempting to relax. She just got done with work, and she's been up since like 6 o'clock this morning. So 5 o'clock. She's been up since 5 o'clock this morning. I don't know. I'm just the idiot that gets out of bed and makes tea for her and coffee for me, and gets on here in order to find out what you guys have decided to write me on Messenger, on email. And now I have comments to read so that I can get told how stupid I am. It's really nice. But, oh, look, we have, we found her. But there you go. Well, there's a Jessie. Yes, you can sit. Sit right there. Have a leg. Oh, let me see. Okay, anybody have any questions for Jessie as far as driving the Hydro build or driving Bouncy or whatever? Feel free to pop a question. Start it with a J for Jessie in capital letter, and we'll read it off for her. Let's see. Is that a bag of Cool Bag of Doritos says, is that a bag of Doritos? Yes, it's a bag of Doritos, Cool Bag. How in the world you have not gotten a copyright hit for that name, I don't know, bud. If your channel ever ends up growing spectacularly at some point, I'm sure they will come after you. Let's see. How do you get an 80s model to run smooth? Simple. You put a newer motor in it. If you're dealing with the old carbureted 80s stuff, I mean, it just is what it is. You're going to run into problems. Did I get... Okay, so the giant filter boxes that were in the auction, do you remember the filter boxes I claimed I was going to make into cat boxes?
Yeah, you never did.
Yeah, no, I didn't. So I have a buddy of mine that works on diesel trucks, and he works on dump trucks, and he works on, he's got like a Peterbilt out back or something like that, and things like that. So he ended up seeing them in the video and immediately told me I wasn't allowed to make them into cat houses, that I had to drop them off at his place. So, so that's where they ended up. But when you consider the number of free things that you guys have ended up seeing that came from him, I guess a couple of free a free cat house air filter dinguses was a decent trade-off for that stuff. Let's see. Are you going to ever build a Cub Cadet pulling tractor like the Quiet Line Hydros? Pulling tractors here in the state of Maine are a kids-only event, and the nearest pulling competition that consistently runs in our area is almost an hour and 15-minute drive to get to, and John has no interest. He can't wait to be 18 years old and go drag racing lawn tractors, but he has no interest whatsoever in doing pulling tractors. I've tried a couple of times to talk him into it, but it just is not his thing. The other problem with pulling tractors here is that most of them require you to be 10 years old, which means it'd be another couple of years before he could anyway. Let me see. Future project is making a go-kart like yours for my son. Which one of the go-karts are you making? Are you making the gas-powered Power Wheel, or are you making the 5-speed go-kart that I ended up building? I actually have a different version of that build that I have debated numerous times over the last few years that we might have to go and take a look into. And that might need to be a winter project for something just as a filler. That, and I'm wondering whether I could get the ice racing group to allow me to run it if I build it. But I don't want to give away too much, so we'll leave it at that. Let's see. I have an 18 horsepower Kohler Courage single. Needs a carb clean and starter. I will donate it to the Dozer Build. I will get a hold of you later about it. It needs to be on. It doesn't need to be on my bench anymore. Awesome. Thank you, Travis. If that ends up working out, sure, dude. I'd appreciate that. Travis, if you're still listening to this stream, the Agway that I just did in video, I'm not going to be able to use it for what I was planning on using it for. I ended up with other stuff. I know that you deal with transmissions of that nature that are in there and had something you were hunting around for. If that is something that you're interested in, maybe we can figure out some sort of deal or something. Just so that you know, I am throwing it up for sale. I value it at about $150, and feel free to get a hold of me. If anybody sees this and you're in the Maine area, I'm going to be getting rid of the Agway. I actually just posted up the advertisement on Marketplace, so feel free to find it and get a hold of me if you're in the area and you want something like that. I've got 150 into the rig. I'm literally just trying to liquidate what I put into it to get it up and running. Let's see. Have you ever heard of a Panzer Tractor? They have cut down Chrysler rear ends in them. Yes, I've heard of Panzers. There was a whole series of those. I believe Dannermans were in the same category, if I remember right. I believe Panzer competed with Dannerman, if I remember right. There are actually a series of those that were built using Ford rear ends also. And there are plans that you can hunt around on the internet and find where they take two-wheel drive 90s Ford Rangers with a 4-cylinder. No, 80s. They take an 80s Ford Ranger and they cut down and they thin out the front end use the 4-cylinder out of it, and they end up making tractors out of those. And unfortunately, I never find those with enough decent stuff on them to do. But sooner or later, I'd love to go and build a personal machine of that nature. Let's see. Jerk of all trades, good to see you in, dude. Hopefully you get some videos up soon over on the other fellow junker area there. Jerk of all trades is a fellow junker that I trade with, good guy, and he's been talking about doing a Toyota build of some sort with a friend of his. And if I ever worked on an RE1000 Craftsman knockoff of Little Snappers, if that's one of those single blade ride-on rigs, I never bother buying those. And the reason being is because those are one of those drive it into the ground type things around my area. The Toro 4-speeds out of the 90s, the Toro 5-speeds out of the 2000s, the Troy built 30-inch cut decks and stuff like that. All of those machines are always just beat to utter piss into the ground, worthless to ever buy in my area. I think literally in 10 years of YouTube, there's one that I bought and got running on the channel, and that was probably like 8 years ago, maybe 7. Let's see. Jay question, does she approve of the ride quality, or does she expect a softer, stiffer ride? So on Bouncer, do you like the ride quality?
I already answered.
Oh, you already answered? Oh, you've been typing.
Jabbering.
Oh, okay. I was talking, so you just typed in answers.
I
I get it. Oh, apparently Jessie's been over here on her phone answering you guys, and I am just going to sit here and continue answering questions that are for me, apparently.
Well, we both have a question. Someone wants to add us on Facebook.
I don't do personal requests on Facebook. Here's the deal. The deal is I created the Redneck Computer Geek page because you can message me through that page, because otherwise my phone would explode nonstop all day. And the problem with Facebook Messenger running an Android phone is that what I discovered...
Ding, 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 ding.
Well, ding, 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 ding. And what I also discovered is that running an Android phone, and probably the glitch has been fixed since the S7.
Oh, mine updated today, so yours will not update in 2 weeks.
But during the S7 series, if you received a group of different people, like 2 or 3 people at the same time messaged you on Messenger, it would actually either kick your video recording, or it would kill the audio in your video recording. So I don't do personal people on my Facebook page unless they're another YouTuber that I work with personally. But even then, yeah, I don't even hardly have family on my Facebook page. Like,
I didn't mean blood family, obviously.
Oh, okay. But, you know, I'm a black sheep of the family, and so is Jessie. So we don't even really have family on our Facebook. But yeah, you are more than welcome to go and send me a message on the Redneck Computer Geek Messenger. And I check it at least twice a day, if not 3 times. Jessie has lunch at 11 o'clock Eastern time, Monday through Friday, right? Yes. Yes.
Sunday through Thursday.
Oh, Sunday through Thursday. Okay. So I am guaranteed to check it at 11 o'clock Eastern time. I usually check it when I'm getting us coffee in the morning, and I usually check it again normally.
Us coffee.
I mean, yes. Okay. Tea and coffee. I usually check it again, usually around 7 to 8 o'clock Eastern time at night. So if you have a question, you want to send me something, feel free to get a hold of me during that time.
Mine's just my name if you want to add me. I don't care.
Although if you add her and then immediately ask if you can send me a message, she's going to delete you because that's what she does. Because,
No go.
yeah, no go. And don't be stupid enough to do that to her Instagram page either.
And don't
because
flirt.
that's what people do.
Don't flirt.
Yeah, if you
We make fun of people.
Yeah.
I screenshot everything.
Yeah, we like to.
I'll share it with him, and I'll send people pictures of us together, so they get the hint that we're together. Back off.
Yep. But.
Yep.
But.
Life is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. But her Instagram does have some lingerie photos, so I mean, it is much nicer to look at than mine. But don't message her.
Modeling.
Modeling photos. Oh, my bad. Yeah. Gotta word it correctly here, whatever works. All right, let's see. Not sure if you know anything about these. Nope, don't know anything. There, I answered that comment. All clear.
Dirt bikes?
No, I don't have a dirt bike. I don't touch anything to do with dirt bikes. Sorry, dude, I'm out. Don't deal with dirt bikes. Let's see. Let's see, by ride quality, I'm meaning the ride quality on her Hydro. The Hydro actually has a set of springs underneath the seat because Jessie has scoliosis, and so she needs that. If I had my way, the stupid thing would be mounted directly to the frame, just like mine. So Jessie's seat on the Hydro is actually...
It's squishy.
It's squishy. It's actually... It's an MTD mounting bracket with MTD springs with a Murray seat with a double padded, fully waterproof, Murray upgraded seat cover. So she has a Rolls-Royce seat on $100 machine, basically.
My back is expensive.
Yeah, I have more money into making her seat the way she wanted it and the paint job than I do the entire rest of the machine.
I didn't expect the paint job, though. That was your surprise.
You wanted purple. I made it purple.
I was just gonna...
It was either that or like some god... Like literally the choice of cheap purple was like this color purple or what it is now. Because that color purple is basically all that they had available in the local stores around here.
I was gonna buy my purple. You didn't have to. That's why I work where there's paint available.
Well, if you had bought the purple, it would have been your color
purple. I didn't
purple.
know when you were doing it.
It's not my fault you don't like the purple.
I didn't say I don't like it. I never said I don't like it. I'm just glad it's not pink. That's all I said.
Oh, we did figure that out. There is
It's
something.
the lighting.
There is something to do with certain types of lighting affects the way that paint is picked up by my phone. So if you, in the video I'll be posting next, Jessie's phone is the one that is taking the video of it when it's launching at the starting line. And if you look at that compared to the video that my phone shoots, that John is shooting, it is very different, even though both of those clips are shot at exactly the same time. So watch her clip in order to see what color it really is, because for some reason my phone makes it look pink. I can't seem to find any reasoning as to why it does it. And all the other red color stuff seems to show up okay with my phone, but it's something about that paint job my phone doesn't like. Let's see. Land Cruiser. All right, so Jerk of All Trades is working on videos on a Land Cruiser he's working on and has it in the shop now. So hopefully he'll be able to get some videos up on that. Toyota stuff usually tends to be pretty popular on YouTube, so we'll see how that does for him. Let's see. What's the story behind the Furbies? The short version of the story behind the Furbies is back when I was starting my YouTube channel. I was working with another YouTuber, and the Furbies, if you ever see the baby white Furby, there's a baby white Furby that John actually has with him when he's a baby. And he used to talk to that stupid thing when we were on tractor hunts all the time. And so it lived in my truck. And at times, it would end up coming into the shop with me in order to entertain John and stuff like that. And eventually, at one point, my friend ends up jokingly saying, "I dare you to put this Furby in a video." That's where it started. Yep.
I think I remember that.
So my friend Ryan decides to go and, like, you know, I dare you to put it in video, and that's how it started. And the very first video that I put it in, I'm not sure which one it was, but a few people commented about that video, and the whole Furby thing took off. And if you go back, there is a Murray video with adjusting. Oh, it's adjusting the shift lever on a Murray. And that was when I started stuffing the Furbies into hidden locations in videos, so that the Furby would scare people, bug people. Back before YouTube killed my comments, the whole comment section on that entire video was about the Furby in the video. There wasn't a single comment.
Never mind the hard work.
Yeah, there wasn't a single comment out of like 500 comments on that video before YouTube killed my comments that had anything to do with the video other than watch out for the Furby. The Furby just made me shoot my coffee. The Furby just scared me. Holy creepy eyes, Furby Batman. All of that kind of stuff. And so the Furby thing, I have parents. I have so many parents that will run into me in real life, and they will run up and they will say, "I watch my videos. I watch every how-to video with my kids because they get mad at me if they don't get to look for the Furby." And sometimes I will forget the Furby for a while. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, John will be like, Dad, where's the Furby? The Furby needs to be in the video, Dad. One of the 4 Furbies has to be in a video." And then I'll start doing them for a little while because I get reprimanded if the Furbies aren't there. And people will actually get a hold of me about forgetting the Furbies too occasionally. So that's where it came from. Let's see.
I need a drink.
Yep, go find a drink. What are you going to have for a drink?
I don't know.
Probably a cocoa. Okay, go make you a cocoa. That way you can make it correctly, since I screw it up half the time.
You don't add enough cocoa.
Apparently, when you add 3 scoops of cocoa, it's not enough cocoa.
Depends on the size of the cup.
Let's see. Let's see. Are the 80s ropers any good? 80s ropers are really solid, rugged machines, but they do have a flaw in that you cannot buy anything that has to do with the steering gear assembly. So if anything to do, so if you got the steering wheel and you're turning it, and at the lower part of that, the rod assembly with the steering gear, if any of that is screwed, that is screwed. You cannot in any way purchase those other than either used, and then you're buying somebody else's beat to snot equipment. Now, there are people that have shown that you can cut out the steering gear assembly out of a GT6000 from the 90s and retrofit it into the older ropers. But then again, you're still in a situation of you cannot buy that part. So be really careful if you're ever buying anything that has to do with an older wizard, not an older wizard, an older roper, an older GT6000, a older wheel horse, anything out of that nature, you cannot buy that steering gear for. So if that is done for, you need to have used parts to fix it. So plan ahead. Let's see. Oh, here we go. You guys have been answering questions. My thing just jumped all over the place. Let's see. MTD gas power wheel Duramax from 2016. Yes, that is a very popular build, and actually we're going to bring that back out of the mothballs and get to that pretty soon. John's actually ended up with personal invite to go run that at a friend's place and be able to go play around. So we're going to be doing some work on that, doing some changes and seeing what we can do with it. And we'll be getting that out soon, actually. There's a good chance next week we'll dig that out of the mothballs. The problem is it sat for quite a while and we didn't end up... The Sun-F tires that are on that are literally entirely the most useless tire I have ever seen in my life when it comes to running on ice or in any kind of slippery snow. Those tires are just the pits when it comes to snow. So the problem is we ended up storing it and stashing it away for the winter. And during that time, it ended up having a carburetor failure. The Obama gas ended up eating out the side of a fuel line. We ended up with a mouse that got into some stuff. So we're going to pull that apart. There are tons of people that have asked whether the axle seals have managed to hold the oil, the grease that's in there over the time of running it while it's been up on its side, like that build is. So we've got a ton of follow-up, this is what happened type stuff that we're going to be touching on as far as that build is concerned. Especially now that comments are back, I can't wait to be able to touch that build and be able to have you guys give me input on what it is important to you guys to see, because that build literally came out during the middle of the comment kill off. And so other than the people that have gone out of their way to decide to outright email me, I've never had comments on most of that build. So I can't wait to hear what you guys think about it and talk more about it and see the progress. Let's see. Have you ever had a Boland's tractor? The only Boland's that I've ever had have been either utterly, totally dead or need to be restored. I do have a Boland's 66 that is stashed off in the side here on the property. The problem is it is at that point of every single thing, no ifs, ands, or buts, would have to be totally torn down, redone, and put back together. It is an utter rusted out situation. Boland's pretty much disappeared here in Maine in about the mid 80s into like, there's a few early 90s single blade riders that you occasionally see around here, but otherwise than that, we don't see Boland's around this area. And they really weren't that popular up here. So even the old ones are really, really rare. Like the 66 that I have, in the last 10 years, I've only seen 3. So that puts it in perspective on that situation with Boland's. Let's see. Have you ever been into off-roading cars and trucks? Yes. I had an uncle that used to go and be a massive junker, and just about anything that we could manage to hot wire, duct tape, and randomly put together, we off-roaded. It didn't matter whether it was some little Chevette or whether it was a Subaru, whether it was a truck, whether it was anything. We off-roaded it because he had connections to the junkyard. And so we would hotwire it, get it up and running, beat the snot out of it, and then haul it directly to the junkyard and swap it for whatever the next thing was we could get a hold of. So yes, the whole off-road it, see what we can do thing, I've been doing ever since I was a kid. Let's see. Jessie's truck, she answered that question. I love mud runs and off-roading. Yes, she does. She likes going and she likes driving too, which makes her even more sexy. Let's see. Did I see the guy that posted up the 420 chain that was fixed with a welder and fence? Yes, I did. I don't think I would run that myself. I think that's probably not a good idea. But hey, whatever gets you home and running around the yard, I guess. I mean, it's one thing if you're going to run something like that around your yard, so if you break it, you're only a few feet away. But
there's a John Deere question.
I wouldn't at all run it, you know, off on the trails. And let me see here. Let's see.
210 with rear end locking in gear or sticking in gear, but once moving it kicks out of gear going down a hill.
Let's see. Okay, let me catch through this and then we'll find him.
Okay.
Where is the Furby in this live stream? I already showed you the Furby in this live stream. It's not my fault you didn't pay attention. Let's see.
Furby 1, Furby 2.
Let's see. Okay, well, we don't need political stuff. So let me see. Hide user. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
It really doesn't matter what your political side is and stuff like that. Yes, I do say Obama gas. And whatever my political affiliation and stuff is, doesn't matter. I say Obama gas because during the Obama administration was when they decided to take the Reagan gas bill and they decided to up it into like 10 to 15%, which is when it started killing everything on the market. So yes, I say Obama gas. Does it have anything to do with my political situation? Unfortunately, it kind of does in the fact that Obama was one of the presidents that really didn't like YouTube growing and cut a lot of YouTube profit. But it doesn't matter what my political affiliation is. And if you want to throw around a bunch of politics and stuff in the chat, I'm just going to kick you. Let's see.
Illuminati. Yeah, so what are we going to do if money goes away?
Yeah.
I don't see money going away.
I've seen Craftsman with a horizontal shaft engine from the 80s. Is that a GT6000? There's a good chance that's a GT6000. A lot of your 80s GTs were horizontal shaft. Most of your vertical shaft 80s would have been LT4000s, LT2000s, and LT1000s. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so John Deere question I apparently somehow did skip. So there it is. I have a John Deere 210 with a rear end locking in gear or sticking in gear, but once moving, it kicks out of gear going downhill. I apologize. I didn't realize I had skipped your message. I thought it was coming up. All right, so if you have a hydro, then I would say that your motor pump is, your motor side of your pump is blown out. If you're kicking it out of gear when you're in a geared transmission, then you've got big issues at that point, because your shift keys would have to be popping out. Or the other thing is if you have one that's got square cut keys, like an H pattern shifter, then you could potentially have synchro issue, and you're not actually able to get it over far enough for it to lock into the gear. So that would be my three things. If you've got a hydro, and if your hydro is engaged and you're able to free roll it down a hill, then that means that the hydro motor side has ended up worn down to the point that it is free flowing when it's not powered. If you're dealing with something like, say, a 5-speed Spicer or something, and you put it into, say, third gear, and all of a sudden it pops out of it and it's rolling downhill, then there is no way for your spider gears to get from third gear to neutral, which would mean that the next thing in line would be your connection to the differential itself, which would mean one of your three gears in the line to the differential would be what was broken. So yeah, I'd say that you need to tear it apart.
Apparently, I'm a stepchild Barbie.
Redneck stepchild Barbie. Hi, Lauren. How are you today?
Redheaded, not redneck.
Oh, well, you're a redheaded redneck stepchild Barbie.
I'm not a damn Barbie.
No, you're not a Barbie. But you don't like the Pippi Longstockings reference either, so watch out there, Pippa.
I like when you call me Reba, though.
Oh, okay. You can be Reba?
Yeah.
No, is Reba a redheaded stepchild?
No.
Oh, okay.
Stepchild part really necessary?
All right, let's see. I'm considering turning a roper into a pulling tractor. If you're going to end up turning something into a pulling tractor, one of the guys that I recommend talking with is a YouTuber called Polar Bear Ed. He's really cool to talk to. He does Cub Cadet pulling, but he pretty much is open to discuss with anybody about anything. He's a really cool guy. And the other one you can talk to for pulling that I've been talking to is Twisted V Twin Garage. Yet again, Twisted V10 tends to focus on Cub Cadets with center clutch packs, but he's a really cool guy to talk to, and he's very open about discussing building Kohler motors and stuff. No, thank you. I don't want any of your voodoo hot cocoa. Yes, 5 scoops in your giant mug of doom.
Yes, 5 scoops. Perfect. With creamer.
Let's see. I like the Mass Fix tires. Do you mean the Maximus tires? Is that a spelling difference? Maximus is what I ended up buying. Let's see. How's the inside of the house coming along? Well, we're working on it.
3.5 rooms.
Yeah, we've got 3.5 rooms figured out. We've got some gutting of some walls to do. And the living room is pretty much the last thing to go and get done. Well, I've got most of the kitchen done at this point. So the
deep cleaning.
Yeah, so the problem is as we gutted out most of the living room, but then we gutted out most of the back rooms, and then the gutting from those ended up with Goodwill and trash in the living room. So we're at the point now that once we re-gut the living room, of sorting out the stuff left over from my dad, my personal stuff, the Goodwill stuff, and the trash, because at this point, as far as cleaning out the house is concerned, I've hauled 28 bags of trash out of there, and I still have probably another 10 at least to haul out. And that's without having touched the basement, which they also trashed. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
And I get to use my Scentsy products to clean it.
Yeah.
Hey, they work really good.
Yeah, they do.
There's no more yellow stain in the shower area.
How common are John Deere garden tractors in Maine? John Deere is much more prolific in Maine than a lot of the other brands. As far as the larger tractors or the larger garden tractor grade tractors are concerned, you pretty much in Maine at this point, your only choices are going to be John Deere's Cub Cadets and the larger Husqvarnas and some of the Craftsman's, although Craftsman really doesn't tend to build too many garden tractors at this point. So that's what you run into, is the choice is pretty much, and there are smaller Macy's, I believe, in some areas. But yeah, John Deere is pretty prolific up here in Maine. I just don't particularly touch the John Deeres because the flipping profitability on John Deere's usually is, yeah, it's about that. Yeah, flipping John Deere's doesn't turn profitable. It shrinks really fast. And
where's the van truck? We didn't answer that one.
Let's see. Oh, Van Hollen. I'm going to be working on that as soon as I get the Ford Ranger put back together in order to be able to pass inspection. The inspection on the Ford Ranger for Maine State inspection is due next month. So I have $700 to $800 worth of parts that I ordered that all need to go in order to get it re-inspected. So I've got a lot of work to do in the next couple of weeks. And then once that work is done, we will put the front end of Van Hollen back together, make sure all the lights and everything work, because I've discussed it multiple times. Anytime you're going to do a project like that, always get as many things functional as possible before you rip it apart. That way you know if something goes wrong with it afterwards, that you had to have screwed it up while you were building it, and you can troubleshoot from there. It's much easier to troubleshoot when you know it worked first than it is to troubleshoot, well, I thought it worked.
Oh, yeah, like the truck.
Yeah, like the truck.
I miss my truck so much.
Yep. How many drag races have I won? No,
No, me.
Oh, have you won?
I don't know if they're talking about you or me. They didn't give a name, so I'm answering mine is 0.
Oh, yours is 0. Yes, Jessie personally driving the Hydro. The answer is 0. Races that I've won between all the rigs all together, probably, I don't know, somewhere around 16 or so, I would say. As far as winning the whole kit and caboodle, I've never won the whole kit and caboodle. I've ended up in the winners group several times, but I've always ended up losing out of it. There's several different, so we run double eliminations when we run. So the way a double elimination works, the short version is that Jessie loses twice and then does the filming that you guys love so much.
I'd much rather film than race, honestly. The racing gets my anxiety up so high.
Yeah.
But I do like driving it. There's the difference.
Yeah.
I do it just to drive.
Yeah, Jessie does it just for the fun of getting out there and getting to go drive it. Hydro Build is what it is, although we do have upgrades in the works. So plan for that. We're going to be discussing upgrades really soon. I'm actually picking up a transmission. I'm picking up a transmission for that tomorrow afternoon. I'm potentially picking up another transmission for that sometime later, and we have one transmission in the junkyard for it, for doing upgrades. So we'll be discussing that soon and getting into that idea. Now I forgot why I had 2 fingers up. Oh yeah, we were explaining bracket racing. So the short version of bracket racing is that let's say, yeah. So let's say I am just playing the winner. I'm just playing the winner of running through everybody and everything. So I would end up going down through the first bracket as winner, 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 winner down through the bracket. What happens on your last run is that the winning loser of the loser's bracket that has fought their way back goes against the winning of the winners in order to be able to win the whole thing.
So the loser has to race twice and win. The winner just has to win the one time.
Yeah, so the winner goes down through for winner, 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 winner till the last of the bracket. And the loser winner ends up going from the winner's group to the loser's group to have to cycle his way through all the losers as a winner to get the final race against the winner of the winner's bracket. And the thing about that race is the loser's bracket winner has to come in and beat the winner bracket twice to win. Because if the winner has cycled all the way down through, then he's never lost at all, which means he's still got 2 losses to be eliminated. And that's the short version of how the bracket race works. So several times at this point, I have been in the winner's bracket, lost out, won a race, and then lost the next race and gotten multiple races through that bracket. But at this point, my big mod is getting really close to dialed in. I'm at the point with the big mod that if I can get it just a little bit more dialed in, most of the big mod's problem is I need to practice consistency and shifting. And once I get that dialed in, I should be doing good. As far as the diesel goes, the diesel is just giggles, but we have some upgrades for the diesel coming, so we'll see if we can make it a little more giggly soon. Let's see.
Who's Mayhem Country living?
Mayhem's a good old friend.
Well, he, she, them, they're very proud of you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayhem. I'm glad you're proud of me. I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope the homestead is kicking. And stay out of those tornadoes in that bomb shelter of yours. And Murray Mayhem does a whole bunch of homesteading and survival stuff. If you want a different, interesting perspective, he's somebody to go watch. Lauren, I have a big wheel horse with a big hydro and 12-inch diameter wheels. Any idea what that trans is? And 5 lug. There is a really good chance that that is a independent hydro pump hydro gear. And what you're going to find, if it's what I think it is that your pulley is going to drive this really awkward egg-shaped looking assembly. And that's going to be sitting kind of kitty turned on top of the rest of the hydro. And there's going to be a hose coming out of it to the lower section of the hydro. And those transmissions are really torquey, and they do still sell the hydro parts to that transmission. If you cross-reference the hydro gear numbers, you can still be able to buy the parts for the hydro side of that tranny. The axle seals, I believe, are universal and still replaceable also. But otherwise than that, I don't think there's much else in that transmission that's replaceable. Whatever you do, do not overdrive those pulleys. The input on those is only a 10cc hydro, and it will it'll overdrive cavitate, and it'll eat the drive pump out of them. I've actually found a bunch of those dead, those hydros, And I never knew it until I built the Hydro Dragster as to why. It's because those were oftentimes paired up with opposed twin 18 horsepower Briggs, and the governors in those would end up running away with age, and people would just continue driving them thinking it was cool that the 18 horsepower was revving up and all of that. And what it did was it overdrove the pump and it fried it eventually. What happened with the LTV? I've actually decided I'm going to probably sell that off. I'm going to probably liquidate it for the $50 that I bought it for. I originally had intended to build it into a dragster, except for that was before I bought it, and I realized that it has a transmission that is about the size of a kid's basketball. There is just no way that transmission would ever hold up drag racing. And they're also really, really highly rare transmissions. So I'm going to probably decide to liquidate that machine and let somebody that wants to actually build it to mow their lawn buy it. The other problem with those machines is that the hydro drive, the Very Drive in them is a rare Very Drive system that uses a 1/2-inch belt and a 5/8 belt instead of a 5/8 and a 5/8 belt. And the 1/2-inch belt for that system is something like a really weird, like 66.5-inch belt. And they pretty much haven't made them in close to like 15 years. So after reading around online, I ended up discovering that if you buy the size below that, the thing won't come out of gear. And if you buy the size above that, it likes to just continuously slip the belt and eat belts the rest of its life. So I don't know. I think the machine probably needs to go find somewhere else to live. If I try to run it as a dragster, I'm just going to blow it to smithereens. And yeah, it's a cool looking machine and it deserves to go live the rest of its life somewhere that will respect that it's a cool looking machine. Let's see. I have a 2004 Craftsman LT2000. And when I move forward, I sometimes hear a clinging sound. I can't figure it out, but do you have an idea what it is? You're moving forward, you're hearing a clinging sound, which means that you've got something that is vibrating and it's impacting something. Well, what I would say is probably the best idea is to jack up the rear end on something really, really, really rugged and solid and put it into gear and spin it up a little bit and see if you can hear where it's coming from. The other thing is I would go down through and I would check where, what I would do is I would have the machine off and set it so that it's like it would be if you were driving it, and grab where the clutch assembly is, and I would shake the snot out of it. Obviously, while the machine is off, I really shouldn't have to go and say that, but we're going to put that in quotations here for the lawyers in the group, and shake the snot out of it and see if you can hear where the clanging is coming from. That's probably the easiest way to try and diagnose it. My bet would be you've got a wear point that is associated with the clutch that has come loose just enough, and that would be why you only hear it when it's in drive. What do you think about eventually electric motors will be the norm? You know, that's basically the same idea as everybody telling me electric cars are going to take over everything and stuff like that. You know what we don't see here in Maine? We don't see Nissan Leafs. we never, almost ever see things like the Chevy Volts and stuff like that. Priuses here in Maine during the fall, you have to go and drive a Prius during the fall religiously every single day, or else the cold, and during the winter religiously every day they have to be driven. Otherwise the cold will manage to go and drain the primary battery and the thing will not drive. We see Teslas here in Maine during the summertime only. You do not see a Tesla in Maine whatsoever from basically about April. Like about the end of April, you will see some Teslas running around from out of state occasionally, and the ones that were stashed away during the winter time. Otherwise than that, the moment you see fall foliage come out, all the Teslas go back into hiding. And the thing about owning a Tesla in Maine is that the only way the Tesla survives the winter is you got to have heated storage, which means only really, really hoity-toity people have Teslas and have to have a heated garage to be able to run it in the winter. And they have to have a location that they can park it in when they get to work that they're going to be able to actually drive it home from with half of the battery life gone because of the cold. That's the way that anything to do with equipment of that nature is here in Maine. And a lot of Mainers will use snowblowers, which means that the entire snowblower market for an electric snowblower is a lost cause. Many of us use plows on our tractors, which means there's an entire slew of machines that are incapable of plowing. You know, it's the same reason why Power Wheels on the channel, you only see me doing Power Wheel modification and stuff for about like 5 months out of the year. And that's because if it is below about 45 degrees, a Power Wheel's runtime drops from like an hour of runtime. The moment it's below 40 degrees, that hour turns into 15 minutes. And the moment you hit freezing temperatures, you're lucky if you get 8-10 minutes out of a Power Wheel. So it just isn't worth it. That's my take on the market as far as gas drive mowers and stuff like that is concerned, that they're going to have to continue, just like automotive manufacturers have had to continue, providing something for a colder climate market. Now, the irony is, when it comes to cars and trucks, that what we see is us going down south to buy vehicles to bring up. What I think is going to happen is that 10 years from now, we're going to see you guys down south driving up north to buy gas-powered equipment in order to take it down south to use. That's what I project we're going to see. It is what it is. Battery-powered stuff is growing. Battery-powered stuff is showing up more and more on the market. I have actually seen multiple battery-powered machines start to show up on Marketplace. Will I be investing in battery-powered equipment? Maybe in about 3 years or so. That's what I'm projecting at this point. Unless I end up with some, hey, it's free, come get the stupid thing, I highly doubt that I'm going to be dealing with anything electric.
Apparently Marie does not like you or me. I'm not really sure. She's
Okay.
like you.
Okay.
And then she said, "Crowing, keep up the good work."
Cool. You should edit the race videos with notes or commentary so we know what's going on with the brackets. The problem is at this point, when we are running filming,
we never know.
it gets mixed up. I don't have access to the bracket field of information most of the time. And C, at this point, C for 3, we're running 3 cameras, sometimes potentially a 4th, depending on the situation. So by the time I'm sorting out filming, I'm sorting out information from 3 separate cameras, trying to align the videos to do with who's in the videos thing and everything else, and mash them together. I've debated a couple of times, maybe like during the sections that are a group of small mod and a group of big mod, and maybe marking some of the outlaws and stuff like that. I might tag them as far as that's concerned, but I'm not sure. We'll see where we go from there.
1997 Romper 11 HP motor. Need to find a motor. Oh wait, that's deleted. That says that we suck. So yeah.
Oh, I'm just trolling. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you. I'm glad that we're doing something right. And feel free to go and post the negative comments at some other time. Just keep them off the live stream. It doesn't affect the algorithm here, but if you want to comment some hateful thing on anything else, feel free, because all it does is just up my algorithm and I make more money. Ironically, that has nothing to do with making more money when you do a live stream. The number of comments that you get during a live stream does not affect the amount of money that you make from a live stream. That's just a little fun YouTuber fact there. But if you decide to go on somebody's actual video and comment, hateful comments and stuff like that, YouTube algorithm does not discern as to whether it is a hateful comment or whether it is an appreciative comment. The algorithm assumes that if it was worth commenting on, that it was worth watching. So I don't.
Worth having money.
And it's worth paying me more. So I don't care if haters are going to hate, which is why you'll see a lot of bigger YouTubers will actually antagonize the haters into making comments. And the other thing is YouTube will oftentimes automatically remove most known swear word comments and things like that. And so you can sit on YouTube and you can go beep, 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 you beeping, beep, beep, beep. YouTube will usually remove the comment, but will still actually give me the algorithmic point for the comment, which is another irony that they do actually know some of them are bad comments, but it still benefits the YouTuber. So there's a little bit of YouTuber background knowledge. Sometimes your haters are actually your best moneymaker.
I'm not seeing your profile picture.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I don't like adding people. I like people adding me or messaging me.
Mm-hmm. When is the next mud mower project? The problem is
I need tires.
No, you have tires.
I need new tires for Bouncer.
Oh, she needs front tires, but
and I need my rear tires back.
No, the rear tires are right there.
Not on it.
Well, go bolt them on. We already figured out that the new Kaimo Impact is nicer for smaller hands. Go bolt them on. So,
no.
As far as another mud mower project is concerned, I do actually have a couple of things that are in the works, which is part of the reason why the Hydro Dragster build has been something that we've been tinkering with. Is one of the things that we figured out a long time ago in the mud mower community is that if you can get your pulley swap done so that you can clear about 15 miles per hour, most of your off-road ATV tires are made so that they clear the mud out of the tread at about 15 miles per hour, give or take a little bit. So what we have ended up what we have ended up working towards with the hydro build is a sustainable hydro that is capable of about 15 to 18 miles per hour. Now, as it is, we know that the hydro build without any issue does about 25-ish. But the problem is it's not a sustainable running 25. So I have a build in the works that I'm still collecting parts for right now to be able to do. And we will be doing a hydro build. We also have another potential diesel idea build, depending. We'll see. We've got, I haven't quite decided how much space I'm going to have in my garage this winter or this fall. And I haven't quite figured out what I want to set aside to do. Because the other thing is, I want to do the ice racing if they're going to do that again this year. And the ice racer needs a lot of work to be a sustainable running machine. That ends up tying up at least one spot in the garage out of the usual 3 available.
It's not coming up. You got a nickname you go by on it? Sometimes Facebook lets you search by nicknames.
Let's see. Does anybody sell the PTO clutch, or can it be redone? I would look into checking what the original model number on the clutch was, and then seeing whether there is a Craftsman associated equivalent. The other thing is, if you can find the original model number, the company that does really well about cross-referencing model numbers is 810. 8 is in the number, and then 10 spelled out, TEN. They do really good about cross-referencing model numbers to their electric PTO clutches that they create. That's what I would look into.
What's your email?
Oh, my email address is Maine is in the state, mudmower@yahoo.com.
There you go, real time.
And that's also publicly posted on the Redneck Computer about section. So if you can't remember how to spell Maine is in the state, just go to the publicly about section on the YouTube page, and it's available there. It also should be on the publicly about section for the Facebook page also. So you're welcome to send me an email if you would like. All right, so just a heads up, we're getting towards the 8 o'clock mark. So we're probably going to be calling it good pretty soon here. And we'll see what we can do about answering a few more questions. But I do need to save my voice so that I can continue making you guys some videos tomorrow.
Nah, you still got a soda to go.
Do not instigate. It is bad enough that my friend Mark and Raymond decided to go and buy me soda so that I would have to do a live stream. Don't you dare instigate too.
I've kind of missed this.
Yep.
So there, I get to instigate. I'm your girlfriend. Or as everybody in Mower Racing world, I'm your wife.
Yeah, the Mower Racers, they end up announcing Jessie as my wife. So we just go with it. So Jessie's my wifey as far as the mowing racing is concerned. Let's see. I do about 500 mowers per year. Oh, you must be a repair shop or something. And 499 of them are carbs. Yeah, I agree. At this point, carb replacement is like my number one, just to heck with it, replace the carb. because the problem is the Obama gas ends up causing green corrosion and stuff down the center of the brass. And I've even seen places where you knock out the green corrosion and it has eaten out so much of the brass that it changes the size of the venturi, and the thing just consistently runs totally rich after that. So if it's got that really, really strong, like green, the color of this can green in it on the brass, then the brass is eaten out to the point through the center of the venturi that it actually will change how it runs, and it's not worth bothering with. So I just replace them at this point. There's so many knockoffs that you can get within a week that you might as well just throw a new one on. Thanks, Murray Mayhem. Yeah, we're doing really good. We're going to be working on getting into the house really soon. And this winter, we're going to be back in the house, which will be awesome because then we're not tripping over each other and stuff like that. And I'll be able to have a dedicated YouTube location and stuff that's not, right in everybody's hallway and everything. And hopefully less kitten interruptions while I'm doing stuff and things like that.
It better be less. Their kittens are getting fixed in September.
Yeah. Let's see. So the thing about, okay, so the question basically is, what can you run for a motor in the drag races? And the answer is everything has to be lawn tractor equipment. Now, with the diesel, the reason why it is they allowed me to run the diesel is because over in Asia and stuff, those diesels are used in lawn grade equipment. And so they ended up allowing me to loophole it essentially and do it that way. As far as horizontal versus vertical shaft, basically, if you can prove that it was used in a piece of lawn equipment, preferably a lawn tractor or a riding mower, they will let you run it. You do need to prove it was running something. The one thing that I have debated getting into is getting into some of the Predator horizontal shafts because they are classified as a repower. But I'm currently waiting to find out whether they're going to allow me to do that or not. There's all kinds of follow-up parts as far as that is concerned, and so we may find out whether they'll let me run it or not. First, we got to finish the actual drag racing season, though, and decide what our pocketbook is like for the winter. Why is it so hard to find small diesel motors? The answer is if you live in the United States, that you cannot find the small diesel motors unless they were imported to fix a piece of equipment motor. That's the reason why you can find the 6s and you can find the 10s, and now you're starting to be able to find the 9s, but you cannot find a 15 horsepower single unless you can find it out of a imported diesel sailboat. And the reason being is because they do not meet the EPA law requirements as far as emissions is concerned. So the loophole that you get for certain ones is that it was in construction grade equipment. Case in point, the generator that I have, the motor out of was actually a sailboat generator grade, and it was rated for construction equipment, and that's how it was imported. You can also find them now in water pump construction equipment. You can also find them now as a sawmill motor for an adaptation kit and stuff like that. But otherwise than that, that's the only way you find them, is they have to be as a replacement for construction equipment motor. Thank you for the thank yous on helping with fixing your Craftsman Rider project. I appreciate that. I tend to focus on the Craftsmans because they tend to be a more down-to-earth machine to work on. And so I'm glad I could help you, and hopefully I can keep doing that.
Yeah, I haven't seen any questions in a while.
All right, guys. So it looks like that's the end of the questions, and we're only about 5 minutes away from 8 o'clock, and I can definitely feel my voice is getting raspy because I end up projecting towards the microphone in my YouTube voice, and eventually that kind of takes its toll.
Darth Vader coming.
Say what?
Darth Vader.
Yeah, I'm going to Darth Vader. Yeah. Luke, I am your Furby father. So anyways, so we're out. Everybody enjoy themselves and stay out of trouble, and hopefully you keep the tractors flipping, at least in the sense of making money and not with the wheels in the wrong direction. Have fun, guys. Have a good night and stay out of trouble. Whoop. I hit the wrong button. There we go. Ending.